You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. And now we took a break on Ghana and we come back on Ghana. In May, the central bank government said that Ghana faced an overall balance payments deficit of $934.5 million in the first quarter of this year, compared with $429.9 million in the same period last year. Growth slowed to 3.3% in the first quarter of the year, and inflation hit a record of 27.6% in May. Critics say the government has recklessly managed its finances with excessive borrowing. The country now spends about a third of its expenditures just servicing debt, not including the principal repayment. Well, we have to help us understand how this is affecting Ghanaians and what could be done. Professor John Gatsi, he's the Dean at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Good afternoon, Prof. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So just before we go to all those numbers and all, the Fix the Country protests are finally being calm. Is it over now? Have they been settled?
Well, we don't see such groupings anymore. We hear about them once a while in the media. But what is happening is that everywhere you go, people are discussing how precarious the economy of Ghana has become. On school campuses, when teachers come together, they are discussing it. In the trotro, that is commercial vehicles, people are discussing it openly. So it is not just a matter of whether or not there is some groupings demonstrating, but it has become a talk in town, and almost everybody is concerned.
Everyone is concerned, but I mean, it's also important to note that, even back here in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, the economic parameters are not very friendly at this time. While the world was trying to recover from COVID, then you had the Ukraine war, which is still impacting different parts of the economy. So I see that some Ghanaians believe that the government is not prudent in its spending. But how true, from your perspective, is this thought?
I think that is true to a large extent. When the government attempted to provide that expenditure record of COVID-19, Ghanaians got to know that the amount of money we raise for COVID purposes are far, far above what have been spent. And government is being called upon not only by Ghanaians, Parliament, but also ordinary people and IMF to do COVID-19 expenditure audit. That is not being done, and attempt was made to do that through Parliament, but it was blocked. So that gave impression to people that no, things are not being done according to prudent management. And most of the challenges Ghanaians are facing were only aggravated because they were there before COVID-19 and Russian situation came. And Ghanaians are realizing that some of the burden from Russia-Ukraine war were just poor policy formulation and implementation, because most of the items for which we are saying prices have gone up, they think we have the ability to produce in the country. So they thought that it's not merely about a hike in inflation, etc., but also it's an exposure that we have not been very prudent in providing the policy environment to be very productive in such areas.
So what should the government be doing at this time, at least from your perspective and from the conversations you've been having with the protesters and ordinary Ghanaians?
Well, I think the people believe that they want to see much more reduction in some expenditure that they realize were not in their interest. They realize that when government is calling upon everybody to cut down on what they expect, there's a group of people in Ghana called Article 71 employees of the state. They are actually, when you look at their salary scale and facility made available to them, it's worrisome to labor, it's worrisome to ordinary Ghanaians, and they think that that should be revised. And also Ghanaians think that some expenditure that the government was engaging in even during COVID time and the times in which we are complaining, they are not things that show that the government is actually on the path of prudence. So these are the things Ghanaians are talking about. So you see, government needs to do much more to win confidence of the people, especially regarding what they are doing. The people believe that if you go to some government institution, they are having a minister, about 4 deputy ministers. They believe that that should be scrapped. They believe that if you go to state-owned enterprises, some of them are having deputy CEO 1, deputy CEO 2, 3, and 4. In that manner, they believe that that is not the way the public purse should be utilized.
And now that the government is going back to the IMF, because, of course, debt servicing is also one of the areas of complaints and fears for the people. Now that the government is going back to IMF to talk about getting a loan and all of that, what are the concerns that Ghanaians have?
I think the concern has to do with the relationship between government and the people. Government informed the people that it was going to engage with the IMF. IMF subsequently touched down in Ghana, did its assessment with various government institutions, including Parliament, the presidency. After IMF had left, the government didn't find it necessary to provide some feedback to the people as to where we are heading to. It is only some parliamentarians who are given a piecemeal information as to what have been discovered in terms of the reserve, what have been discovered in terms of classification of debt. Now they are talking about high debt, high interest payment, high arrears that have been accumulated. And again, there are a number of debts that have been contracted by SOEs, which they think that should be added to government debt portfolio, and that will call for debt restructuring program and balance of payment support program. That is what is coming out. But the people are concerned that their government is not speaking to them as to the outcome of the first meeting with the IMF.
All right. Sounds like a common thing on the continent. Well, thank you so much, Professor John Gatsi, Dean with the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon.
Thank you.